Disclaimer, this video is my thoughts, feelings, and opinions. If you disagree, that's fine.
Sayaka Miki biting the curb in 4K is what I would have said if you had asked me what my wish was a year ago, before I watched Rebellion, which fixed my Sayaka hatred. Hi, my name's Ray. This is the retrospective, I guess. I don't know. What this is my friend was like, you should make this rambling that you did a video. And I was like, maybe I'll do it one day. And today is the day that I make the rambling that I did on my Sayaka Miki hatred a full video. So congratulations.
No one's gonna need me anyway, right? I'm okay with that.
I will mostly be rereading over what I said the first time. Forgive me if some of it is jumbled. I was typing this out and I was typing fast. My fingers were flying, bro. But let's get in. I hated Sayaka Miki in the show because Peep Game and Lock In, before Rebellion, Sayaka was the most selfish girl in Madoka and Puella Madoka Magica. And not just in the first timeline, but in most timelines. In almost every timeline, she turns into a witch. And while, yes, I think Mami was intrinsically selfish in her desire to rope other girls in to being a magical girl, it was all predicated on the fact that she was alone. However, she is shown to not always be that selfish. And she does in some timelines when we do see her learning. She lives through the first and then learns. She is shown to feel deep remorse for her actions when she learns what she has doomed all of the girls to. Mami's actions are done with no ulterior motives. No true ulterior motives. She does have ulterior motives, but no true ones. It is in her head a win-win. It's not anything done with the pure intentions of gain. She genuinely thinks that this is a mutually beneficial arrangement. Sayaka, on the other hand, made a wish with a facade of selflessness that barely hid her true intentions. And this is even more apparent when you see some of the other 100 timelines Homura has gone through. Sayaka almost always wishes to help him, Kyosuke. Why? Because she likes him. Understandable. Until you realize in damn near every single timeline, including the ones where they date, she regrets using her wish on him when the relationship goes south. This is because while her wish is related to healing him, ultimately her wish is that he'd want to be with and spend time with her and notice her around him in general. Time he doesn't have in damn near every timeline, including the ones where they date. This is because, and this is a little bit of a spoiler, once his hand is recovered, he is a violinist. He is a classical violinist. That's what he spends most of his time doing. That's what he enjoys. And he goes on, and she turns into a witch because he doesn't have time for her, because he is practicing violin. He's a violinist and he wants to be a violinist. Timelines where they don't date, she just regrets her wish because they're not together. And this results in Sayaka turning into a witch eventually because, and hear me out, healing him was only a means to an end. Her wish was the magical girl equivalent of, if he could be with me and feel the way that I feel. Quite literally, the thought process. If he wasn't so sad about his arm and the loss of his entire life's work, he'd want to be with me. He just needs to get rid of that silly little depression and then we could be happy together. And because she could not have that, she almost always turns into a witch. Which brings me to my second point, Kyoko. What about Kyoko? What about Mami? These are questions that you always hear if you say that you hate Sayaka. And I've been saying that I hate Sayaka for so long. I've heard them a lot. I already answered about Mami. Mami was not truly selfish. Mami did not know she was dragging other girls into the pits of hell. She just thought, this is for you. This benefits you. This benefits me. We're both winning. Kyoko Kyoko is great. Kyoko is wonderful. I actually love Kyoko. I feel as though disregarding the obvious gay love between Sayaka and Kyoko, them being perfect or near perfect foils is really interesting. I find Kyoko's outwardly selfish demeanor to be especially interesting for Sayaka's outwardly selfless one, because from the moment Sayaka and Kyoko meet, it almost feels like same recognizes same, except Sayaka's blind. Kyoko's wish, while not entirely less selfish than Sayaka's wish, or more selfless than Sayaka's wish, was at least made with some genuine intent behind it. There was a pureness to her wish, which is why when it all blew up, she didn't entirely fall apart. Her wish was genuinely, at least at some level, made with the mindset that my father will be happy and that's all that matters. But because Sayaka's wish was made with a clear intention, a goal, which was clear this obstacle to what I want, it ends up being more of a waste for her. Where I feel like they especially differ for me, and the most important part to me, is that Sayaka had a warning. Which, to be fair, maybe Kyoko did too, but that's speculation for the sake of argument, which will not be tolerated during my TED Talk. Unless I'm doing it, maybe. I don't know. Also relies on a semi-unrealistic hypothetical based on Kyubey's personality and the warning that he specifically, not specifically gave to Sayaka. It was more of an "Are you sure?" Yeah, Sayaka gets more "Are you sures?" Sayaka gets warned though. Why is it so important to me that Sayaka had some warning from the people around her? She had some skepticism. She had people being like, is this your final answer, right? First, let's talk about the warning that she got from Homura, which was vague, admittedly, but we see the timeline where she showed up and told them the truth, and it didn't work. Ironically, most of the time, it doesn't work. Partly because Sayaka, and this is going to be an important side note before I get into this portion of the TED Talk. Pre-wish Sayaka suffers from a totally normal, 100% normal, no sarcasm, this is definitely normal, little version of a martyr complex that we all get during love or limerence. The feeling that we could sacrifice anything, anyone, or even ourselves for the ones we love without remorse. However, while that's true sometimes, maybe mothers doing it for kids, or like just family member doing it for each other, husband doing it for wives, or even some people doing it for their friends, that's usually not true for 14-year-olds. Just saying. She can't be faulted for this though, because this is a normal feeling. If somebody had told me that 20-something-year-old me would be like, fuck that ex-boyfriend of mine when I thought about him and when I spoke about him, 14-year-old me would be like, never. If he told me to slit my throat, I'd slit it. No, you wouldn't, Pookie. No, you wouldn't. You would have told him to go kill him. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, now let's talk about Homura and Sayaka Miki. All roads lead to witchdom. The majority of the timelines where Homura tries to stop Sayaka from becoming a magical girl doesn't work out. Ironically, not because Sayaka cannot suspend her disbelief, because she believes it, but because Sayaka, not even for a damn moment, is able to fathom the idea that things will not play out in her favor. She's like, no, I'd win. She's fighting against literal fate, but no, she's gonna win. She's fighting against literal time, but she's like, no, I'm gonna win. Bro, shut up. Anyways, this is 14-year-old. I genuinely do not know if it's insanely high hubris or naivety, because in damn near every timeline, Sayaka becomes a witch because she refuses to believe that, and these are options. A, her wish will not be regretted. She almost always regrets it. B, if she knows, she will become a witch. No, I just won't do that. C, if she knows, she can die. Nah, that's just not gonna happen. It's almost never the knowledge of what being a magical girl is like that corrupts Sayaka Miki. It's mostly that she is put in a scenario that breaks whatever insanity allows her to believe that she'll come out on top. She's literally in the mindset of, nah, bro, I'd win. And she mostly loses, so get wrecked. And even more so, she tends to bring Madoka with her as via guilt or friendship magic every time. Which, while being Madoka's choice, would not be her choice, I'd say a good 7 out of 10 times, without Sayaka's divine witch wisdom. Also, Mami warned her, mostly about wish regret, but still, she cannot fathom a what if won't, like she can't think, what if this happens? She just won't even ponder it. Side note, girl, you got magic. Heal your brain, because there's something wrong. You learned a lesson way too late. Anyways, I'm gonna lump in the two moments or two warnings, right? Because Kyubey gives Sayaka this more approach of, that's what you want? Okay, whatever you want. Like, and it's been shown that Kyubey just doesn't kind of give a fuck, and that's kind of why. But it's like, if he's like side-eyeing you, I'd be a little cautious too. Kyubey's a lot of things, but he's never a direct flat-ass liar. So if Kyubey was out there pulling a D&D dungeon master level, are you sure? I would be, okay, no, I'm not sure. Sorry, bro, I was wrong. I was incorrect. Let me step back. But Mami, on the other hand, gave her more of a direct warning and specifics of her wish. She was basically like, look, sis, do you actually want them to be happy, or do you want them to be grateful? Which is excellent foreshadowing, like chef's kiss writing. And while I'll try to leave my personal feelings out of this, side eye, Sayaka, side eye, lying ass, little deceitful ass little bitch. Anyways, Mami clocked Sayaka. She read Sayaka like a book, page for page, because she was in fact correct. Sayaka did not want to hear it, nor see it, nor did she want to see herself like that. Which is, in fact, hubris. But it's the main driving force also. And I'll get into that in a moment. Sayaka didn't want to see herself like that. I'm sorry. I'm tripping. And everyone pays the price for it. Which brings me to my next point. How Sayaka sees herself and how she really is. Because god damn is her savior complex strong. And her ego too. Her savior complex and her egoism. Those are the two things that are real strong for like a 14-year-old teenage girl. Like, Jesus. You popped out the room and you tore your mom wide open with that big ass head you got. You don't need to learn nothing else because you know everything, Sayaka. You know everything, clearly. Go out there and fucking die again. Do it again, bitch. In almost every moment, Sayaka sees herself as the exception. She tends to be self-righteous about it too. From the very moment we met Kyubey, it is on display until the moment she turns into a witch, which I think plays a huge part in the reason she turned into a witch. Never once in the first series, / movie, if you prefer to watch the movies, never once in Puella Madoka Magica does Sayaka admit that she's doing something for herself. Like, it's like, we all know that Sayaka's doing it for Sayaka, but Sayaka is so in denial about her own actions. I don't know if she's lying to herself or if she's lying to the audience. Does she know that she's curing him for her? Maybe not, because sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, but that is it. And actually, the closest I'd say to that that moment where her egoism kind of breaks is the moment she finds out that she's a walking corpse for all intents and purposes. Because in that moment, she feels less than. But that's not where I'm at, like, right now. Before I begin to, go off on that, I need to mention that this timeline is one of the only that I feel that she's actually happy for Kyosuke to have moved on. In other timelines, she seems resentful. She seems angry. And in this timeline, she's a little resentful and angry. But I feel like she is less focused on Kyosuke and less resentful and angry about that because she found out she wasn't technically a human. And it's bitter happiness. It's like a bittersweet moment for her, because yeah, she's lost a man that she loves, but she's not even considering herself a person anymore, which is a break of her image of herself. But we're not there yet. Well, Sayaka's hesitation is, yes, a key factor in the chance of her loss, like the loss of that chance with Kyosuke. It is important to note that her becoming a witch is, in fact, all about Sayaka Miki. It is never about the external circumstances at all, but rather it's all about how Sayaka sees herself. But most timelines, that image begins factoring at the bitterness of, or the image begins fracturing, blah, tongue tied, at the bitterness of losing Kyosuke, which she always does because they're 14, and Kyosuke, even after dating her, is fundamentally like incapable of meeting her needs. She's 14 and she doesn't recognize what her needs are, but Kyosuke's not meeting them, I promise. Sayaka needs the quality time, and Kyosuke will never be able to provide, never, not a single once, because she's not number one. She's number whatever, maybe 2 in another timeline and maybe 10 in a different timeline. But she's never number one, and she will never be number one. And that's like, while I understand needing quality time, it's real to and understandable, because that's also my love language. Because she's unable to recognize this, it is always going to ruin their relationship, pretty much. She makes the wish not actually to help Kyosuke, because that was never the actual intention, and we all know that. That's like the least arguable thing about Sayaka. But rather, because she could not attain his love in the state that he was in. He was not in a place where he could love others at that time. He was in a low point in his life, and she fell to the last place on the things that he cared about. And so that was the primary for her wish. But she did have a secondary reason, I believe, for becoming a magical girl. And that reason is not genuinely to help people, but yeah, she helped people, and that was a byproduct. But rather to be a hero, not publicly, in her own mind. It goes back to her self-image. Her reason for her beginning mental decline was not the fact that she wasn't able to get Kyosuke's affection, even though she made this great sacrifice that he didn't know about. That wasn't the reason. The way that not being able to get his affection reflects on her. It's how she sees herself for not being able to get his time and affection. And I feel that is furthered by the fact that she doesn't see herself as human anymore in the timeline of Puella Madoka Magica, not in the most recent, because that's no longer the most recent, which breaks her image of herself. Now, her becoming a magical girl does not feel as good. It doesn't feel as good. Her wish was for nothing. She doesn't have such a high image of herself, because is she even a person anymore? And this doesn't make her feel good. This doesn't make her feel good. And it leaves her with one other reason she became a magical girl. But ultimately, it's like watching a mirror shatter a little bit. First, it's the corner. It's the crack on the side of your screen. And she begins lashing out because the image of herself is falling away. She is now alone in her pity as well, because her best friend did not fall into the pitfall that she is in. Her best friend cannot currently relate to the despair that she is in. And that makes her even more angry, because now she feels alone in this worsened image of herself. Her view of herself is now real low, and she's by herself in it. And in that moment, she does what I think is the arguably very human thing to do. She falls into anger. And this anger is really misguided, but it's really human. And she is ashamed also. I know that, maybe not everybody agrees with that assessment of where she's at the point where she's having these arguments and yelling at Madoka. But I feel that a large part of her anger is a sense of shame because she is lashing out at her friend because her friend is not in the same situation as her. Her friend is not at a low like her. And in that moment, when you're feeling so alone and you're feeling so little, she doesn't want to be by herself. And she is upset that now in her mind, Madoka is in a so much better place and cannot sympathize with her and is not there with her in that low moment. And I feel like this is her last straw. Because that moment where she yells at Madoka and her whole life and world feels like it's crumbling, that was her last bit of the image. That was the last piece of the mirror that fell away. She started with the crack with Kyosuke, and then there was the fact that, she wasn't human. And then there was the fact that, is she really a hero if she's going to become the thing that she swore to destroy? And finally, she lashes out at her best friend and realizes, I'm really not that great of a person if someone who loves me so is facing all of my anger because da 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 da, and they didn't fall in with me. And that's her last straw. In the end, the only person who did sympathize with Sayaka sacrificed themselves for her, to die with her. And for me, I feel that all my anger boiled down to Sayaka is inevitable. Sayaka is Thanos in the fucking Avengers movie. Sayaka is there. I am inevitable, right? She is inevitably the cause of Madoka's death in the majority of timelines. I personally I feel that way. You can say what you want, but I feel that Sayaka is a driving factor for Madoka to become a magical girl. In the majority of timelines. Not in all timelines, in the majority of timelines. Because Sayaka does not want to acknowledge her very selfish nature and cannot see fault in her own ways until she is in a situation where she cannot mentally reconcile with where she thinks she should be and where she is at. And that is the only thing that breaks her. She always gets herself into the situation. She finds herself in this situation because she is unable to reconcile who she thinks she is to who she is. And Madoka, as her best friend, does what best friends do. And that made me mad because that is a character who intrinsically cannot change without indirectly and directly causing harms to others because of their inability to change. And also because it personally conflicted with Homura's goal, but mainly because it is a character who cannot change. I feel that Sayaka was in Puella Madoka Magica always doomed to fall into the same pit holes. In the majority of timelines, Sayaka is a driving factor. One of the driving factors. I won't say she's the only driving factor, but I will say that she is a big driving factor in why Madoka becomes a magical girl. And in most timelines, Sayaka falls before ever having to fight the big bad, Well, Parker's not. She doesn't make it there because she's not built to make it there. She thinks she's that girl and she's not that girl. Her pronouns are she but never her because she'll never be her, right? And that type of character really infuriates me. So why don't I hate her anymore? I'm in rebellion. She can change and she grows and she genuinely feels remorse for how things played out because soul gems react to emotional energy so much. What would be our lowest point before picking ourselves back up again is the point where Sayaka's soul gem breaks so she cannot overcome it. For all intents and purposes, Sayaka's story is cut off at the climax. If Sayaka sees herself as a hero, she dies at the death and rebirth point in the hero's journey, and she does not get reborn. Well, spoilers, until Rebellion when she's brought back, and we see the falling action and she's redeemed. Ultimately, Sayaka Miki in Puella Madoka Magica is Sayaka at her worst. And for the longest time, I only saw Sayaka at her worst. And while I do still think that she is a raging bitch of a little kid, like personally, if somebody brought her to the function, they'd have to take her out and excuse her before I excused her, okay? Because I fight kids. She is not unredeemable though. She's not unredeemable. She's just a 14-year-old who we see at the worst point in their growth journey and would have never seen picked back up had Rebellion not happened. Kyoko and Sayaka still deserves a standing because without Kyoko, I would still want to be isekai'd at the beginning of the story after Mami is introduced to kill her and kidnap Kyubey so Madoka would stop being an insecure dumbass. But yeah, that's my TED Talk of the day. Thanks for listening to me blab on. And if you don't agree, feel free to disagree. And if you do agree, feel free to agree. I'd appreciate it if you did watch the whole video before you sent a whole comment about Sayaka Miki is the best character. Because, yeah. In any case, I love you guys. Thanks for watching it. If you made it to the end of this video, I don't know, send like a devil or an angel emoji just so I can be like, thanks for watching my whole video. And I appreciate you. I love you. And bye 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 bye.